There's a lot you can say about 8K. You can say there's no content. You could say that you can't see the difference. I say you can see a difference, but if you're gonna go 8K, you have got to go big. Welcome back, everyone. I'm Caleb Dennison, and I'm very excited to unbox this Sony Z8H Monster 8K TV. They actually come bigger, but this is a 75-inch model, which is honestly where I think you would start if you're gonna get into 8K TVs. Now, I have had these arguments over the past, 7.5 years, right when 4K came out, as a matter of fact. It's ahead of its time. Yeah, a little bit, but there is some advantage to having an 8K TV, even when there isn't 8K content to feed it yet. But before we can get into that, we gotta unbox this sucker. Here's what you should expect to find in the box. There are 2 feet, and these are sturdy, which is probably good because this is a heavy TV. 3 decorative plates, brushed aluminum remote, same remote, just a different finish, power cord, batteries, 4 zip ties, a bunch of paper you probably don't need, 6 screws, 3 for each foot, and then an IKEA style setup guide. Goodbye. The feet for this TV involves some pretty clever engineering. So you can put them towards the center, in which case they'll go in upright like this. There's some pads at the bottom. There's also a rubber strip along this end, so you flip it on its side, and if you're gonna mount them towards the end, you go in like this, and it's a little bit tricky, but once you get it locked in, there are 3 screws to go. Okay, a couple of things I wanted to mention before we move on. One is, do not toss aside those setup instructions as I jokingly did earlier. You're gonna need them. Just getting the feet on the TV is a little bit more complicated than most setups. Also, have a second person around. The TV is big, it's heavy, it's unwieldy, and you're gonna need their help. The next thing I want to mention is down in the bottom of the box, there were about 6 decorative panels that were hidden in various places. So definitely go hunting for those. You'll need them, and you'll see us put them on later. The next thing I want to talk about are these 2 slots right here. This is where the feet would go if you wanted a more centralized stand location. If you don't have a wide entertainment center like we do, that's where they'll need to go. And on a 75-inch TV, that was smart of Sony to do. The next thing I want to show to you are these 2 speaker terminals. This is to use your TV as a center channel, so you would run speaker wire from your receiver here, and this would make the TV function as a center channel. More about the audio system in a minute. A little bit further over, we've got all our inputs and outputs, and among them are 4 HDMI inputs, 1 on the side, 2 toward the bottom, and then all the way over here next to the center speaker input, we've got HDMI number 4, and this is notable because this is the only one that supports 8K at 60 Hertz, or more importantly, 4K at 120 Hertz. We finally got it set up. There's a lot of extra work involved. It's a little bit more complicated than most TVs, but the extra I'm most excited about is the screen real estate. 75 inches is significantly larger than 65 inches when you actually see it in your room. It's a very big, imposing TV, but it's an attractive one. You know, it's got a very nice thin frame around it, and that frame, by the way, is actually gonna act as a tweeter so that we get better sound. We'll check that out a little bit later. But I really wanna get this thing up and running, and maybe we'll even turn on the PlayStation 5 and see what that looks like. All right, so we're up and running, and I'm not gonna drag you through the entire Android TV setup process because I think you've seen it before. But if you haven't, check out our Sony X900H unboxing. You can check it out there. I do wanna show you a few things. The first is, make sure you've got the latest software update. There's a portion of the Android TV setup process that makes you think it's doing that, but it doesn't. You need to force it. So go into Device Preferences under Setting, hit About, System Software Update, and then just have it checked. Now, I have recently updated this, but I just wanted to direct you to that so that you saw that it was necessary. All right, so let's talk about some picture settings. I have put on some HDR content on YouTube and pressed play so that we can make some HDR picture adjustments. You can see HDR up in the upper right. I like the cinema picture mode, always have, but there's a couple things that you want to adjust. Go ahead and go down to the motion area and make sure that motion flow is turned off. By default, it's going to be on custom. And it's actually not employing a ton of motion smoothing, but there's a little bit there, and if you're sensitive to soap opera effect, just turn that off. All right, that makes things real easy. Also, the Expert 1 color temperature mode on here, I think is going to be just right for most folks. You might want to experiment with that if you prefer something even warmer. Expert 2 is good, but overall, I'm a real big fan of the cinema preset on Sony TVs. Now, let's pop into Netflix. Okay, so I popped up some pretty popular content on Netflix. This is in Dolby Vision, so when we go into our picture settings, we'll see that we're in Dolby Vision Bright. And I'm fine with this, but if you watch in a darker room, you might want to go with Dolby Vision Dark. Those are your two choices here, at least when watching Netflix. I'll stick with Dolby Vision Bright, but again, same thing. Go down to motion and make sure that motion flow, if you don't like it on, is turned off. I'm going to go ahead and turn it off as I usually do. And again, you're getting the Expert 1 color mode, which suits me just fine. So really, there's not a whole lot to do when setting up this TV. If you just pick your preferred picture preset, whenever you're watching something, whether it's on one of the HDMI ports or one of your apps, just double check every time you go to that HDMI port or an app, you make those adjustments real quick. So I'm going to turn on the PlayStation 5. It recognizes a game console immediately, and I'm going to hit setup, but it's done. I mean, it's got this. So I want to make sure it's gotten a critical setting correctly. So I'm going to go into settings, and I'm going to click watching TV, and then I'm going to click external inputs and go all the way down to HDMI signal format. We go into HDMI 4, and it's selected enhanced format 8K. This is the correct selection. This other one is for Dolby Vision. So if you want 4K 60, 10-bit color, or 444 or 422 chroma, you can do that, but you're not going to get 120 hertz. In order to get 120 hertz, you want to come down to enhanced format 8K. So it's great to see that it automatically got that correct. One more thing I want to do to be totally set up correctly for the PlayStation 5, I want to go into picture settings. Now, before we did HDR and SDR for cinema mode, and that's fine, but here we're going to want to make sure that we're in the game setting, and we are. HDR is enabled. Let's come down here and take a look at our color temperature. Again, Expert 1, that's very good. And just one more thing I want to check, of course, the motion. I want to make sure that we've got motion flow set to off. That is by default. Everything looks good. So compared to the experience I had with the X900H, which I understand was kind of anomalous, this is really seamless. So there's a lot riding on this TV review. The best LED LCD TV has yet to be crowned this year. This could be it. Also, it's an 8K TV, and we have to talk about whether it really justifies the extra price and whether the extra resolution is worth it. How does it upscale TV, movies, and more importantly, games? How's it going to work with the Sony PlayStation 5? Is it really a good match for that particular game console? That and more is going to get covered in our full review.